So next we're going to look at several applications for quadratic functions. So we're going to begin with a problem that says an outfielder is throwing a long pass to home plate. The height h of the ball above the ground after t seconds is given by the function h of t is equal to negative 3t squared plus 12t plus 2. The questions that we want to answer are: how long will it take the ball to reach the maximum height? And what is the maximum height? So to begin, I want you to think about what happens when someone throws a baseball. So think about the path of that ball. If I throw the baseball, the ball is going to go up for a while, and then it's going to start to come down and eventually hit the ground. And so that ball at some point is going to reach what we would consider to be a maximum height. And so this point at the top of the path of that ball, that maximum height, is the same thing as the vertex, which we've been looking at in this section. So in order to answer the questions in this problem, in order to find how long it takes the ball to reach the maximum height and to find the maximum height, we need to first find the vertex for this equation. So I'm going to begin with my vertex formula, which remember is x is equal to negative b over 2a. I'm going to take a look at my function, and I'm going to make a note that the a value is being played by negative 3. Remember, the a is the number in front of your squared term. My b value is 12. Remember that the b is in front of the variable that doesn't have an exponent, so in this case in front of the t. And then the c is the number that sits by itself with no variable, so that would be 2. So now I'm going to go to my formula for the vertex, and I'm going to plug my values in. So in place of this b, I'm going to plug in a 12. And in place of the a, I'm going to plug in a negative 3. So now we'll have negative 12 on the top, and 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 on the bottom. And so my x value is going to be 2. So what I know right now is that that vertex point has a first coordinate of 2. All right, let's find the y value that goes with it. So remember that that can be done by taking my function and plugging my value in. Now, you don't want to get concerned here about the fact that we found an x, but we have a t variable. All right, the x is playing the role of the t in this function, so we know that we find our x value when we plug it into the function to find the y. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and so everywhere I have essentially a t here, I'm going to be putting my x value in, which is 2. All right, and then I'll also put it in right here. And then we want to work that out. So remember that we do our exponents first. So I'm going to do positive 2 squared, which would be 4. Then I do my multiplication. So I'm going to have a negative 12, a positive 24, and then a positive 2. And so my y value, negative 12 plus 24 plus 2, is going to give me 14. And so now I've found the vertex for this quadratic equation that I was given. Now the only other thing that I need to do is answer the questions. All right, so what I want to call your attention to is that typically our functions for quadratics, remember, look like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. And we've already said that instead of an x, they simply used a t in this formula. So I want to keep in mind as I start this that x is the same thing as the t. So let's look at what the variables actually stand for. In my function, I have two variables. I have an h and I have a t. We're told in the problem that the height is the h. And we're told in the problem that t is measured in seconds. So I know that that's a measure of time. So the first question says, how long will it take the ball to reach the maximum height? So if someone asks you how long something takes, your answer is going to be in terms of time. So this is going to be a t value, all right? So the t value is going to answer this question. Now remember, we've already said that the x is the same as the t. So I'm going to go to my vertex and I'm going to note that the x value is 2. X is the same as t. So my answer needs to be 2 seconds. The other value will answer the other question. What is the maximum height? So that's going to be the y value for this function. And so that's going to be 14. It doesn't actually give me a unit for measurement. I'm going to go ahead and just say feet so that we write something on there. Okay, so you want to keep in mind on these word problems involving quadratic functions, your goal is to find the vertex and then determine which number in the vertex answers which question. All right, so let's try one more of these examples just to have another one to practice. This one says the daily cost in dollars to produce x TVs is given by the function c of x is equal to x squared minus 80x plus 2,000. How many TVs should be produced to minimize the cost? Okay, so I can look at this quadratic function, and we learned in the last presentation that in order to determine if it opens up or down, we look at the leading number in front of the x squared. Now remember, if there's no number there, we're assuming that that's a 1, a positive 1. Which means that the function will be a quadratic that will open up. And this makes sense because they're asking us to find a minimum. So they're asking us to find this bottom point at the bottom of the graph, which is the vertex. So just like in the other problem, we're going to take our quadratic function, and the first thing that we're going to do is find that vertex point. All right, so I'm going to write my formula down. X equals negative b over 2a. I'm going to come to my formula, to my function, and I'm going to note that the a is 1. The b is the number that sits in front of the x, so that would be negative 80. And the c is 2,000. And writing those down just helps me put the right number in the right place in my formula. So in place of the b, I'm going to substitute in a negative 80. And in place of the a, I'm going to substitute in 1. All right, so a negative 80 turns positive. 2 times 1 is 2, which gives me an x value of 40. So again, in that vertex point, I now know that the first value is 40. In order to find the y value, remember that you're going to take your function and you're going to plug your x in. So everywhere there's an x, I'm going to put my 40 in its place. All right, so we're plugging into both of those places. And then we're going to work it out. So 40 times 40, 40 squared is 1,600. 80 times 40 is 3,200. And we're going to add 2,000. And so we'll put that in our calculator. 1,600 minus 3,200 plus 2,000. That gives me 400 for my y value. So that tells me that that is the y value in the vertex point. All right, so once you find the vertex, remember then you're going to go to your problem and look at what number answers which question. So the first question says, how many TVs? So what I want you to note is that the problem tells us that X is the number of TVs. So if the question is asking me how many TVs, and I know that X is the number of TVs, I'm simply going to do the X value in the vertex, which would be 40. What is the minimum cost? That will be the y value, so the minimum cost will be 400. So again, remember that when you're doing a problem, finding a minimum or a maximum for a quadratic, you are going to find your vertex and then determine which number answers which question.